now. And we are live on Facebook. All right, we'll kick us off. Again, thank you for signing up and tuning in into today's webinar. My name is Caleb Talley. I'm with the Startup Junkie team. For those of you who may not be familiar with Startup Junkie, we're a mission-driven organization based here in Northwest Arkansas that exists to support innovators, entrepreneurs, small business owners. We do that through one-on-one consulting and events just like this one that you are tuning into today, whether you're on Zoom with us or watching on Facebook. We're hosting this event in collaboration with our friends at the Arkansas Center for Data Sciences. We're excited to have them with us here today. We've got Lonnie Emmerd, Bill Yoder, and Ashley French. Glad to be doing this with y'all today. Excited to learn more. Arkansas Center for Data Sciences is a nonprofit organization that's addressing the technology skills gaps with innovative programs like apprenticeship programs, which you're going to learn more about today. So without further ado, I will turn it over to y'all.
Thanks, Caleb. Bill Yoder with the Arkansas Center for Data Science. Lonnie's going to share his screen, but the genesis was Governor Hutchinson's Blue Ribbon Commission. We're in our third year. The main objective is we've got more demand for IT skills than we have supply. Guess what? It's nationwide. But in Arkansas, we stood up a nonprofit to focus on that. There are a lot of different pathways to an IT career. The more traditional is secondary education, but there are a lot of other non-traditional pathways. And we're going to talk primarily about the registered apprenticeship program as probably the most efficient in terms of time and capital to take somebody that's got passion and potential and teach them the skills that employers want. And you guys are employers, you're probably looking for skilled resources. And this is one pathway for you to consider as a supplemental strategy. And with that, I will introduce our Director of Apprenticeship, Mr. Lonnie Emmerd.
Well, thanks, Bill. And I'll just go ahead and put up your team, Bill. This has been a real luxury, I think, for myself coming here to Arkansas from the state of South Carolina, where we had done more IT apprenticeships than anybody in the country. And now guess what? I think we're doing more here in Arkansas than anybody in the country. But this is our team, and what we're going to describe to you today, both Bill, myself, and Ashley French has also joined us. She is our Director of Talent Management and Talent Acquisition. And what we hope to accomplish today is to tell you a little bit more specifically about how we've set up an end-to-end process to be very supportive of you as either small business entrepreneurs, anywhere from a two-person shop to Walmart and everywhere in between has been our objective to try to inform you about the power of the registered apprenticeship model, as Bill had mentioned. You'll understand why our team has been put together the way it has. From a client relations perspective, Lisa Wiggins is our director of that area. Ashley has a team of 4 recruiters that are seasoned and spend a lot of time thinking about the population of Arkansans from a diverse pool of candidates that may not be your traditional candidate only coming through a 4-year degree program and so forth with many years experience. We're going to introduce how we have been able to break down the barriers of entry to the IT profession. We also have a unique aspect of what we do, and we'll talk about the project management office and how we help shepherd these projects through for every employer, small, medium, and large, and the fact that we have a director of training solutions, Don Walker, who has come from the Arkansas Coding Academy, years of experience, and lends itself to the fact that no matter what the occupation that you may need in the tech space, we've pretty much got a standard and a set of training curriculum that would be very specific and I guess it would be customized was the word I would use to make sure that it meets exactly what you as an employer need your IT professionals to be able to do. These are the 4 programs that we focus on at ACDS, but we're mostly going to talk about apprenticeship programs today. Bill does a tremendous job of keeping us connected and collaborating with all of the traditional educational model for computer science. We run a lot of seminars and workshops as well as events and programs that are really about networking. I mean, a lot of what we've done since I've been here in Arkansas, in Northwest Arkansas, has been to establish relationships. There's such a ecosystem that supports you. And I'm sure you're already aware of that in your efforts with Startup Junkie, like the conductor and others around the state. So I do want to clarify for everybody here. And again, I'll mention now that as you develop questions, by all means, feel free to put them in the chat. And if you won't remember them, or we will have a Q&A session at the end. But one of the things that comes up is making sure that everybody understands the difference between an internship and an apprenticeship. They both have significant value in the equipping and the development of candidates to have skills that are applicable to today's environment and dynamic and changing. But an internship, as many of you may know or may have been an intern, is that it's a very educator-driven program. You know, we're talking about students who need to get meaningful work experience. And that's a very important aspect of development. And but it's very low commitment, usually short term. Whereas we want you to know that as we describe the apprenticeship model, as we have implemented it here, and knowing that this is a registered apprenticeship through the Department of Labor, this is an employer-driven program. So whether you're a small shop or whether we're talking to all the larger and intermediate sized companies, the point is that this is going to open the door to a candidate pool that, as Bill said, has passion and potential, and that we've shown that we can teach tech. And this is something that you as a small business would want to know, that the state of Arkansas has not only funded us as an organization, but funded training costs. You'll see that a lot of this comes at no cost to you as an employer. There is an Arkansas state tax credit for apprentices, $2,000 per apprentice. And the big players in the state, probably that's meaningless to them. But for a small business getting started, to know that if you do the apprenticeship model, that there is this state tax credit, that's pretty impactful. And they are a full-time employee, but you have a lot of discretion on what that starting salary is. We'll go through that. Ashley's going to talk in detail about our kind of supply process for this diverse pool of candidates here in a minute. But just know that they leave with a credential, that this is a standard program, but yet lots of flexibility. So they are definitely different programs, but they both have positive aspects to them. The next slide is really only to give you a perspective from the U.S. Department of Labor that there is not all that much to describe about an apprenticeship. I'm sure many of you, when you heard the word the first time related to IT, your mind may have gone to, oh, I know apprenticeship. That's electricians and plumbers and welders. A lot of people still have that mentality, thinking that that's kind of what an apprentice usually is. Well, we've established from way back that the roles in IT are very aligned to having the apprenticeship model work. As you can see, the DOL says it starts with business involvement, and that's really you as the employer who has the demand for tech skills. Numbers 2 and 3 on this slide really are the magic sauce, the secret sauce behind an apprenticeship. It's the combination of some classroom skill building, which can be delivered virtually. We've certainly been as flexible as possible on how that skill building gets delivered, but it's combined with what we call on-the-job training, right? The idea that any company is going to have to show the new person who comes on board, show them the ropes, show them the Startup Junkie way, the Blue Cross way, the Walmart way, whatever you want to call it. And that is so important because it generally happens anyway, but when you put it into a structure of, let me show you the context of the work you're going to be doing. And oh, by the way, you're building some skills in the classroom, and you're going to see immediately how that skill applies to your work. So it's kind of a learn and apply model. And it really does produce, and we've proven this now with almost 300 apprentices in the state of Arkansas, that model of becoming very productive very quickly and a very cost-effective model, as Bill mentioned earlier, has really been the goal as we set out to implement these programs. 4 and 5 are really about the candidate, the individual. They are going to receive a reward for skills gains. That's something you as the employer would be conscious of. There's 3 things that an employer has to know about apprenticeship. One is that they would get a minimum of 144 hours of classroom training in a year's time during the apprenticeship. That can be spread out any way that seems appropriate. Some companies front end load those. Some of them have just a couple mornings a week that are classroom, and the rest of the time is OJT. But at some point in that year, that apprentice, if they started out at whatever salary, has to get at least one pay bump, and that can be at your discretion as an employer. But it does just recognize their competencies and the fact that they have demonstrated mastery of some skills. The number 5 item here is that this is nationally credentialed. So individuals who complete an apprenticeship have a very portable credential that they could take with them should they happen to move. You as an employer don't want them to be portable, right? We want them to stay. And just so you know, apprentices, by and large, on a large sampling, 84% of apprentices are still in play within 3 years of the time that they started. So that is an indication that this model not only is good for attracting talent, but it's good for developing them and retaining them. These are the IT occupations for which we have standards today. Now, this is changing every day. It's very dynamic, but most of these, for any of you who are familiar with kind of the IT space, recognize that these pretty much cover the waterfront for the most part between either the software side, the hardware and infrastructure and cyber side of things, as well as the analytics and more of the business of IT type roles. So if those are of interest to you because of the way you're starting your business or now growing your business, just be aware that we'd love to be sitting down and working with you on this. I mentioned the end-to-end system, and this is really unique. There's not a whole lot of other agencies or nonprofits around the country that have been able to have the sustainable kind of revenue and support to be able to do this. But we look at the client demand. So I've mentioned many times, we're talking to hundreds of employers across the state. And just like we're sharing with you today, what is your need? How might this fit your strategy, right? We're not trying to sell you some flavor of the month program or dangle some free money in front of you. You might be enticed by that, but that's not the goal. The goal is for you to see an avenue by which you could enhance your capability as a company, and in many ways see the cost savings of this ecosystem in supporting you doing that. So from a client relations point of view, we just want to make sure that you have enough information about apprenticeship to make a good decision. On the other hand, there is a lot of Arkansans across this state that didn't find their way into a computer science degree program, but are very competent and capable of potentially being an IT professional. And as I said, I'm going to let Ashley talk through this on the next slide in a little more detail. But imagine why we can get more females and minorities and veterans returning from the military, career changers, non-college goers. There's a lot of competent Arkansans that are finding their way into our profession without having to have that 4-year degree because of the apprenticeship model. And it's a win-win because a lot of companies would like to add more diversity to their technical staff. And sometimes the HR processes, with their limitations on entry requirements or certain things, kind of limit that possibility. And now all of a sudden, we've knocked that barrier down. So people who thought they might not be qualified look at this and go, oh my gosh, I got a chance. And employers go, oh, I didn't think I could find candidates like this because we kicked those out of our Indeed job posting or whatever. Well, that barrier's gone away too. Now, from the project management side, this program development about customizing exactly the right skill building and training and curriculum is very important. And then the project management so that you as a company can focus on what you need to. Let me get talent in the door and have them become productive very quickly. But all the paperwork and all the stuff with the DOL, the Department of Labor, and registering apprentices and all that, we do that as the sponsor. So ACDS is the sponsor or intermediary for this in the state. And you as an employer basically take on the employer agreement, which says you're the employer of record for an apprentice. And then the apprentice understands their responsibilities to meet all of their stage gates and so forth. And then sustainably, we handle all that on your behalf. So that's really the end-to-end system. You'll see in a minute what the cost, benefit, and savings are for you as a company. But let's start with the first most important thing. Well, here's kind of a smattering of some of the logos around the state. We've now got almost 80 companies that are actively involved and committed to registered apprenticeships. So this doesn't represent every logo that we need to update this, but just have an idea that it's small, medium, and large companies. It's across every sector. So it's anybody that's hiring IT professionals. Now I'm going to introduce Ashley French. She is our Director over Talent Management. And Ashley, you do this so well. I want you to describe in as much detail as you want what we're doing with this kind of pool of candidates and how the recruiting process works. Ashley?
Yeah, thanks, Lonnie, and afternoon, everyone. As director of the talent team at Arkansas Center for Data Sciences, and previously I spent 7 years in the telecom space as an IT recruiter and really saw firsthand the lack of diversity. And that really pulled me to our mission at ACDS. And, Arkansas has a way to go in regards to spreading out the IT workforce from, more minorities, females. So, at the end of the day, at a 3.8 unemployment rate here in the state of Arkansas, talent is hard to find. So our talent team does a couple of programs in regards to how we support and reach out to individuals, no matter where they're at in their IT journey, to where we can educate individuals on here are the IT career paths out there, help them with training. We also help experienced IT job seekers. So kind of our recruiting process in general, if you're sitting here, and maybe you have an open position that you're looking to hire IT talent, what's in it for you? Well, me and my team offer free recruiting assistance for anyone that's open to hiring through the apprenticeship model, which, as Lonnie did a great job kind of highlighting, 144 hours of technical training, a dedicated mentor, all things that, are kind of best practices when it comes to onboarding a new employee. And we really take a customized approach in regards to an open position that we're going to support and send you candidates, to where in a company, we call it an intake call. We're going to get your kind of must-have skills, your nice-to-have skills. Do you need someone that has previous PHP experience? Do they have to have, maybe the Wix platform, or maybe it's on the data side of the house? But we're going to take every candidate through kind of an initial phone interview. That's just very, basic, trying to get to know them, go through those job transitions. We also give them a technical assessment. Another thing that companies don't always have access to are these fantastic technical online assessment vendors. And, we customize those based on the position that we're hiring for. We've got a really cool programming assessment, which is great because I'm not a code slinger. We do have a recruiter on our team that is, but it basically will assess them on kind of where they're at today. Next step in our interview process, we're going to do a deeper dive via Zoom. We're going to put some eyes on them. May give a little bit of coaching in regards to, how they prepare for an interview, and really make sure that they're the right fit before we send their resume to your inbox. And then for any of our positions, we are going to post your job on our career site. We can do that branded towards your company. We have some companies in Northwest Arkansas that like to be confidential. I'm happy to do that as well. So kind of the key areas that why partner with us, or how we can partner with each other. For any type of open IT position, we offer that recruiting support. In addition to candidate referrals. Sorry, Lonnie, I do want to do a plug. If you know of anyone that, is on the job search, whether it's a career changer, whether it is someone that maybe has been stuck in a call center job that wants some exposure to what are these cool IT careers out there. We've got some funding for free training to get started, and then offer some kind of mock interview coaching in regards to some of the soft skills.
That's great.
Lonnie, did I hit everything we wanted to get
you
into?
Sure did. And I think I want to think about our audience for a minute as Caleb, this being potentially small business and entrepreneurs, startups, and those that are growing. One of the interesting things that's evolved that you can probably compare earlier when I mentioned the difference between an internship and an apprenticeship, a college student pursuing a degree in computer science, one of the things that University of Arkansas and everybody else probably considers is that in the summer months, they'd like those candidates to have an internship, right? To get meaningful work experience. Well, with all these candidates that Ashley and her team are working with, we felt the same way, that these folks who are moving down this path of equipping themselves for a future in IT, they needed that meaningful work opportunity. And we've got some work-based learning funding. And we've got some support through a number of sources. One is the Office of Skills Development, which is kind of where all apprenticeship kind of routes through the state of Arkansas, direct report to Secretary of Commerce. We also won a Delta Regional Authority grant, and we also have received Walmart Family Foundation funding to be able to do what's called work-based learning. And for small companies, this may be a great transition to take a great candidate that Ashley and we have, and have them come on board to work for 3 to 6 months, on our nickel, right? We would cover the wage for a period of time to get them some meaningful work experience. You would be giving them real work, right? Because you've got real project needs. And then that combination of how they begin to assimilate into your organization, we would hope would lead to a full-time offer potentially. Now, that doesn't have to be the outcome, because guess what? Even if all they did was spend some time getting real project work done, as Ashley would attest, their resume looks a whole lot better after that than it did before. And so we think it's a successful model no matter how it works out. But for small business, we've already got about 20 companies that have practiced this already around the state, and it's a great model. So we want to encourage some of you, if you're at that stage with your small business, to consider that. And the Walmart Family Foundation grant actually told Bill and I, or told our organization, hey, focus on small to medium-sized business. Don't just offer this to everybody. Help the ones that really are in a good situation where this could be beneficial. So that kind of completes the supply side. I won't spend a lot of time on this slide, but just know that it's our obligation to make sure we have the best of the best in terms of the actual skill building and training. And that means working with UA Global Campus, working with national vendors, working with state providers that are best in whatever we're talking about. Data analytics, cyber, we work with Forge Institute, whether that's IT generalist type work, software development. We've teamed up with coding academies. So we have an inventory, if you will, of what we consider to be the best of the best that we would have you as companies match up to. If you need somebody to be certified because of your government contract or something you're doing with Walmart and they require a certain certification, then we're going to make sure that that's part of their apprenticeship training. This is a slide that really, it's not an ROI, but it is a cost benefit, I think, summary of the savings for any company on a per apprentice level. So as Ashley mentioned, we're offering kind of this talent acquisition support. Small companies, I doubt you have HR and a lead recruiter or whatever. So that's a big benefit to you. That comes at no cost, right? Our technical assistants to kind of oversee and shepherd the apprenticeship model, it again comes at no cost to you. The training, and you've heard me mention this time and time again, between our funding that we have from the federal government, because we've won what's called a Closing the Skills Gap grant, between the Office of Skills Development and their funding of our model, right? And then the Walmart Family Foundation in Northwest Arkansas, we have the ability to cover any of your training for an apprentice. So it's free to you, no cost. And then the Arkansas State Tax Credit at $2,000 per apprentice. Again, we handle all the project management. So that means all this paperwork is done on your behalf by us as the sponsor. We think that savings ranges somewhere between $5,000 and $10,000 per apprentice. So you can see this has been designed and set up for companies like you or others. As Ashley mentioned, we appreciate referrals because we want everybody to say, oh yeah, I've at least heard of this. We take employers from what's called awareness to interest, and then hopefully commitment to say, yes, we want to implement this strategy in our company. So I haven't been monitoring the chat yet, but I guess I need to look at that. But here's kind of a summary of why might you want to partner with ACDS. Free recruiting services, access to this very diverse talent pool. We do work with traditional college campuses, so don't think that this is competitive necessarily. It's supplemental, because this whole support model for where the talent is going to come from is going to require both an increase in the quantity of traditional students as well as this inclusion of a non-traditional pool of candidates, and that's what's working so well. Project management, the expertise we bring, the professional training can come in any format. COVID almost forced this to happen, but we've always known that the training and skill building can be virtual. It can be delivered in a variety of ways to self-paced as well as instructor-led. So there's a lot of different options there for you as an employer. So this is some of the frequently asked questions. And I'll just put those out there first and see if we haven't answered these. You know, what defines an apprenticeship program? I think we've been through the three things that are critical for an employer, that you know there's 144 hours of training, that there is a mentor that's provided. And if you can't, because you're a small business, provide that mentor, we have in many cases as an organization provided that mentor. We work with another company in Northwest Arkansas called Emory Solutions Group. They have also supplemented that mentoring, especially for work-based learning. So bear that in mind. How much does it cost? Hopefully you're seeing a big old goose egg, you know, in terms of what it costs to you. Does it apply to other industries? It absolutely does. I can help you with that. If in your business startup, you're thinking you need an apprentice for some other function that's not IT, we can connect you to the Office of Skills Development. I'm still a consultant with the state regarding apprenticeships across every sector. What if you have a current employee that wants to change positions? We didn't talk a lot about this with you guys as small business, but it could apply. The apprenticeship is not just for entry level. Apprenticeship can be for an incumbent existing employee who is trying to advance their skills. We've got one woman who was starting her own business called Inspiring Innovative Concepts. And she basically had been kind of a pseudo developer in her past, but she now needed to become a data analyst. She herself went through the data analyst apprenticeship program, even though she had multiple responsibilities at her company. So that's just a small business finding a way to take somebody who needs some training to take on the next level and using this apprenticeship model as a way to upskill and advance their career. The one question could be, well, what if the candidate doesn't work out? You know, I've hired somebody that doesn't check every box. And what if they don't meet all the learning objectives or the work objectives? You know that the Department of Labor in the apprenticeship agreement, it is an at-will contract. So if at any point they don't meet all of the obligations of an apprentice, the company can let them go. And there's no repercussion, there's no negative consequence, legally or otherwise, because they've signed an accredited, you know, apprenticeship agreement. And so they understand what those potential consequences are. We have very few that fall out of this program. And so the rate of retention and the rate of completion is very, very high. And so then we leave you with this final thing, but I don't want to get to the final question because Caleb, have you been receiving anything in the chat? I'm not sure why I'm not seeing the chat questions.
We do have one question from Matthew Ward. He asked, what have been some of the common mistakes companies have made when working with an apprentice?
Just leaving them hanging and not realizing that as you would assimilate any employee in, and especially an apprentice, the expectation is that mentoring is as much a key piece. You know, if OJT has to be blended with some classroom learning, we can't just leave them to their own devices, right? And so whether it's a joint thing between ACDS and the employer, we want to make sure that we're checking in, and we do that. Hey, how are things going? Have you been taking that learning and applying it on the work objectives? We would know some of those things going in. And so it's really a matter of just not letting those things fall by the wayside. And then the other piece to that is we've had a few companies, and this is being really transparent, that have got so much work on the plate that they get so inundated with 40 to 45 hours, blah, 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 more and more, that they don't allow them the chance to do the training that they committed to, right? That is something that is still going to be very important, even if it has to get staggered out over many months. We just can't overlook it. So I would say, other than that, all of the other aspects of this, Ashley, you can chime in because you stay in touch with these folks as well. But those two things from a company perspective are the ones to look out for. So,
Lonnie, I think that was the same, you know, and the key takeaway is making sure they have that. I mean, everyone lives by their calendar. So if you block out, you know, the expectation that, all right, your mentor is going to reach out to you X, you know, this time every week or month, and then specific designated time for training, it seems to be successful.
But that was a very good question, because that, you know, you come upon those things when you start thinking through the process and how is this really going to work. So appreciate that question. Caleb, any others, or we can offer to the audience any other questions about the functionality or the implementation?
Well, Matthew also had a second question in the chat. He said, are there any exceptions for companies outside of Arkansas to participate in this program if there's intention for them to have a presence within Arkansas?
I can tell you that we've already had 3 companies that have started out talking to us, one coming from international, one coming from California, and one of them coming, and I don't remember which other state they were in. So our program is extremely flexible, but I will tell you that our federal dollars can assist apprentices who could be working for a company in the state, but they could be remote, right? Meaning that as long as the training emanates from Arkansas, which all of ours does, and the company resides with a location in Arkansas, then we're certainly able to use federal and state money. If we get to a point where there is a candidate who's coming in and they are not yet a resident of Arkansas, until we can get verification of that, sometimes we can't use state money. The Office of Skills Development does put kind of a prerequisite that they're using state funds for registered citizens of Arkansas. But other than that, we've still been able to accommodate this, especially when the companies are coming in from somewhere else and saying, we want to be in Arkansas, right? We've got this great opportunity, and they see that this program isn't available everywhere, and it gives them an access to a talent pool that they otherwise wouldn't have found. So I hope that answers your question.
If you have a question for either anyone on the chat, you can unmute and ask out loud if you'd like.
Absolutely.
Or if you're watching on Facebook Live, you can drop it in the comments. I'm curious. So you mentioned, it was mentioned that some companies might remain confidential through the process. Is there a specific reason why some companies might want to remain confidential with their participation? Sorry, I can't speak to that.
I think it may not be really around the fact that they don't want people to know they're participating, but actually, you know what some of the reasons are on the posting process at certain stages, why they want to keep something confidential. Go ahead.
I think honestly, it is just it was a big name, and they wanted to not have their internal recruiters hit with a lot of volume and interest, because the job posting was so awesome. I'm talking about this fantastic training opportunity and kind of what they would actually be doing in the departments. And so I think it was more of a volume standpoint. And that's kind of what it came down to.
To add on to that, from a visibility point of view, we've had most every company, even the really large companies, and you can imagine who they are, saying they want the whole world, the whole country to know what they're doing in this space, because I think this visibility helps them not just here, but being some of them nationally recognized, it's a big deal. And we're trying to utilize that visibility in a big way, but it can help the small company too. I mean, I think of a few of the companies that have gone from starting their first few apprentices, and now they're upwards of 30 people in no time. And part of that has become the notion that they're an employer of preference, because they've shown that they care and that they're investing in the development of their people. And some people say, well, an apprentice, that sounds like, I'm settling for something less. And what it's really turned into was an opportunity to find something more than what they were able to find before. And I just think I'm not saying that from a biased perspective. I'll give everybody a glimpse. So when I came to Blue Cross Blue Shield of South Carolina as the deputy CIO, we had 1,100 people, and we grew to 2,500 in 5 years. And it was painful, because there was just not enough talent in the pipeline. That had we not figured out how to do this apprenticeship model, it would have been even worse. We had to grow our own. So now what you see in Northwest Arkansas and really across the state is this total effort to say, how do we grow capacity in the state of Arkansas? And this model is truly proving how to do that, right? As opposed to only graduates with 4-year degrees, and the experience model, as Ashley can attest, if companies are looking for somebody with 3 to 5 years experience, the only way to find them is to steal them from somebody else. And that's rob Peter to pay Paul. And so we're saying, hey, advance people in their careers, but backfill with new talent that's coming in that increases the capacity. And as you heard Bill say and myself, we have been more successful than we would have ever dreamed, and we're ready to help everybody on this call to get started if they think it's the right situation. So we're ready, Caleb.
Awesome. Well, it's an invaluable service you are providing. And I hope everybody that's watching this, whether they're watching on Zoom or on Facebook Live, or they see this later on our YouTube channel, it takes advantage of these resources. I want to thank you all for taking the time to present today to our entrepreneurs. And if there are no more questions, which I don't see any on the Facebook page.
Now that I'm looking at the chat, I might add one more thing about the question that says, are there any exceptions, companies outside of Arkansas? Just know that Bill and I converse on a regular basis with all of the other grant recipients and other states who are focused on this, many of them looking at our model and saying, hey, how do we do this in whatever state that is, right? So if somebody is working with a company or representing a company that's outside of Arkansas, and they say, are they doing that in my state, right? We can help at least connect them to some of the right people who could help them with the potential. Maybe they won't have the funding like we have, but they may have some support and some folks in place to at least help them with the registered apprenticeship model. So I wanted to bring that up, Caleb, just for their knowledge.
I appreciate that. I think we would rather at Startup Junkie get them to relocate their startup small business headquarters to Arkansas instead.
Sounds like a good formula.
Well, we appreciate y'all again. I will I will attach the slides that you saw today on the emails if you're watching, and I'll send a follow-up email to everybody with the link to the recording, copies of the slides. So feel free to reach out to everyone there, and I'll let everybody go on to their day. Have a wonderful day. Hope everyone avoids the ice and cold weather, and have a wonderful week.
Yeah, thanks for having us,
Thank you so
Caleb.
much.
Thanks,
And
Caleb.
thanks, Ash.
Everybody be safe.
Okay.